Today on the podcast, I interview Rachel Kurian. She is with Explore Kid Talk. Rachel came from teaching children at early developmental ages and working with them both in a school environment and one-on-one to now transitioning into working with parents. One of the things she does is help parents in their reaction to their children. She has a workshop about controlling yelling, and she also has workshops and one-on-one coaching for tantrums, how to deal with tantrums with kids. But really, it's about parents understanding how to figure out what they're feeling and then how to figure out and communicate that with their children. She helps parents to understand what they're feeling in the moment, whether they are angry or frustrated, and to communicate that with their children in order to have more constructive and easy time with disciplining children and teaching them consequences instead of rushing to yelling and punishment. I really feel that this is a skill that everybody can benefit from, whether you're a parent or a teacher or an aunt like me, or just somebody who is around children or other adults, honestly, because the way that we can communicate with children can transcend into other areas of our life. And a lot of it has to do with forming discipline and having routine, having structure in our day so that communication with our family and friends can be much more constructive and smooth. Enjoy this awesome conversation I had with Rachel.
Hello, Rachel. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Crystal. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, of course. Likewise. So we had a chance to chat a little bit last week and get to know each other, but I am just really looking forward to bringing this message to my audience. I do have a lot of parents, even some grandparents that listen to and tune into my show, and certainly people that no parents or no children in their lives. I actually have a lot of teachers too in my community. So I think your information will be really helpful for all of those people, even people who maybe aren't parents, but are aunts and uncles or just around children in some capacity, which is my case. I'm not a parent yet, but I do have nieces and a nephew, and just having those skills of communication, I think, are really important. So Rachel, I would love for you just to give a quick snippet. I know I did an introduction of kind of who you are and what you do, but in your own words, what is it that you do for parents and families?
Thank you so much. Thank you for that opportunity. So I worked with children in many different aspects. I was a special education teacher. I did early intervention where I went into the homes and worked with the children. And I really started to see that parents needed more support. So they would read a book, it didn't really help. They would go on Facebook and get bombarded with, answers that made them feel guilty or upset. And again, it didn't help them. So I've started to pivot to really work with parents so that they have the support and the guidance that they need to be the parent that they want to be, to work with their children, to have that connection, and really be the parent that they want to be.
Okay, excellent. And I know that we had talked briefly before, kind of about your history of working as a teacher and being called to education in that way, and then working with children with some developmental issues, like in autism and ABA services. So kind of bring us maybe through that history and how that changed for you in that now you're working with parents more than focused on working with children.
Yes, absolutely. So I did work in the special ed field for many, many years. I worked special ed preschool. I taught special ed preschool. I also taught special ed kindergarten. And I did that for a few years. And then I focused on trying to really work one-on-one with children. And that was with children that were between the ages, before 3 years old. So they were little, they were young. and they might have had language delay or behavioral struggles or other things that were happening. Some were autistic, yes. Some might not have been, but had other delays in other areas. And I worked one-on-one with the children and a little bit with the parents in those settings. I did that for over 12 years, where I did that for a long time. And that's when I really started to talk to the parents more, that parents of special ed children had some support, even not enough, but some. Other parents really had no support. And so many parents were sharing that they didn't have support, or they didn't want to parent like their parent. So they felt like they didn't know who to go to, or they weren't happy with their yelling, right? So many parents have come to me and said, I don't want to yell and I don't want to parent that way, but they don't know what to replace it with. They don't know what to do instead, or if they're having other behavioral problems with their little one. And sometimes you just hear from other people, oh, it's normal. It may be, but they don't know how to get through it and how to still be connected with their kid. And that's when I've decided that I wanted to help and support those parents so that they can have strategies to figure things out and they can have support.
Yes, that is excellent. And I think about that often, just in my own journey and thinking about having children, and how a lot of parents are just busy and stressed. And and some of that comes down the pipeline, I think, towards their children, unfortunately, because it's all the stress of the day and work and life and things and finances, and then just having sort of that short fuse, I think, when it comes to parenting, and like a knee-jerk reaction, maybe even to yell. So where do you think that comes from for parents, sort of that, like, maybe that is, I don't know, sort of like a first response to sort of like accelerate?
It is for many of us, it's an instinct. And, many of us grew up with yelling, and maybe we chose that we don't want to parent that way. And the problem, though, is that parents say, I don't want to yell as much, or I feel guilty that I yelled yesterday. But you need to know what to replace it with. Instead of just saying, I don't want to yell, it's what can you do instead in those moments? And when I talk to parents about our response is something that we have to control as parents or aunts or anything. When you're with the child, we have to control our response so we can help the child understand how they're feeling, that the feelings are okay, but the behaviors are not. We have to separate that. But if the parent is at their max, like you said, and I talk about that a lot, if you're at your max and you're having a really bad day and you had work calls or the video call didn't go as well, you're back to commuting, all the things, you come home, you're already at your max. So when they spill the goldfish on the floor, which isn't really a big deal, it becomes a big deal to you. So I do very much work with parents on how we have to respond to the situation, because there's two things. We have to see how our child is, what's going on with our child. Are they upset? Are they angry? What's happening there? So what's going on with our child, their feelings and their behaviors that we have to deal with. Then we have to see what's happening with us and how we are responding. So in any situation, it's how the parent responds and what's happening with the child. It's both.
Wow, this is actually making me think of sort of the way that adults treat each other too, and that it probably, in learning how to deal with your child, it allows you to deal with other situations better. And I always think back to, like, I feel like in the throes of 2020, especially, this got so bad where people were, yelling at each other on social media and, just unwilling to have legitimate conversations with each other because people weren't really thinking about the feelings and thought patterns and attitudes of the other person and where they were coming from. So I feel like your work is so necessary, I think, for parents, because I think the breakdown of the family communication is such an indicator of the breakdown of our communication in society as humans. So
thank you. Those are such kind words. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
of course.
what I try to talk about a lot is that the feelings are always okay. It's how the behaviors or how we respond, and we have to separate those things. And like you said, the same thing with adults. You get sad, you get angry, you're frustrated, and things are hectic. All your feelings are valid, but it's how you respond to things that we have to look at. And you can't teach your child to respond in a better way if your response is yelling or taking something away or certain things. Then that's what you're teaching your child.
Yes, of course. And then the cycle continues on and on and on. It's really kind of, I think of this as like a stoic in a stoic way. So I think I shared with you that we are kind of in that time period of like starting a family, and is this, going to happen? Am I going to have a child? And then of course you think about, well, once this child gets here, like, how am I going to be a parent? And I felt that even though I'm having a child later in my life, I don't think that I would have been like healthy enough mentally and emotionally to have a child younger, and I take very good care of my physical health. So I'm very grateful in that way. But I felt that I really needed to work on my mental and spiritual wellness. And, one of those things is practicing a lot of, sort of Stoic philosophy, and of course, having a strong relationship with God and my faith. So I guess I'm curious, like, what are some of the tools or, maybe like philosophical ideas, or are there any that, you maybe follow that and somehow shape the way you teach parents how to do this and implement it into their life?
Well, first I want to say, give yourself that credit that you knew you were not ready to have a child, and that deserves credit and recognition. Don't just ignore that, because many people do. Many people are like, well, I'm married, the next step is to have a baby, or this is the next step, or this is what I'm supposed to, and we really, all of us, need to take away the shoulds and the supposed to and do what's best for us. Those supposed to's and I should be doing is what messes us all up.
Well, thank you for that perspective.
Yeah. And that's something that I want to tell every parent too. The shoulds are something we should try to take out. But what I work with parents on is that you can still put boundaries in place with your children, with family members, with people, but with your children, you can put boundaries in place. You can set expectations. You can still be firm and be connected to your little ones. Sometimes there's a misconception that if I'm too firm, I won't be connected, or allowing their children to do too much and not setting expectations and boundaries. And setting expectations with your children and setting boundaries with your children are very important. Children learn better when there's expectations set in place. When you could tell them, we are having bath time, changing, then we're going to read, and then it's bath time. That's an expectation. Then they understand what's coming next, and they can learn better by having those expectations. So I work with parents a lot on that it's important for you to be firm and consistent, but you can absolutely still have a connection and even be more connected to your little ones.
Wow. Yes. I love how you said that the boundary, the setting of the expectations, and I think following through with that,
consistency is huge.
Is like freeing in a sense, right? Allows you the freedom to sort of fill in the gaps. And it's funny, I have this conversation so often in my health and wellness coaching that people think that routine or these boundaries and things that they set around their nutrition or their exercise or their meditation or journaling, whatever, people often initially feel so restricted, like, oh, like this is all of my freedoms going out the window. And, what am I going to do? But I think once people adopt those routines and have some consistency in their life and start to develop some discipline and all of those things, they start to really feel more free. There is freedom in routine and consistency. And it's like,
it's
getting people to understand that.
Right. It's scientifically proven that routines help your body to understand what's coming. Like a big thing, even for adults, nighttime routine. And I work on this because children need the nighttime routine. It's beneficial for adults also, because when you do the same routine every night, your body starts to say, oh, this means that bedtime is coming. This means I need to calm down and start to get ready for bed. And adults probably have a nighttime routine, but they don't think about it as like they do with their children. They're not comparing it to a nighttime routine. Maybe you have one last glass of water, then you go wash your makeup off, then you brush your teeth, then you put on your pajamas. That's your nighttime routine, where somebody else might put on their pajamas first and then brush their teeth. If that is your nighttime routine, routines are beneficial, and they are absolutely scientifically proven that they help your body to understand this is what's coming next. This is what's going to happen.
Wow. Okay, cool. I like that. And that's another big one, Rachel. I talk to my clients all the time. Like, you have to have some structure around your bedtime. And I mean, so this is an interesting question for you. I don't know what it is, why adults are like, don't want to have a bedtime, don't want to have that. Like, I don't know. Do you think it's from a lack of structure in their childhood around that? Or do you think it's from too rigid of a structure in their childhood?
It could be either, but I do think it's like a fear of the structure, where there's, they feel that it might have to be too much, where it doesn't. A nighttime routine should be simple. It doesn't need to be 10 steps. It could be 3. And I think that's where the misconception is, that they feel that it needs to be a lot of steps, and it doesn't. It could just be pajamas, brush your teeth, maybe you read in bed. Like that is your nighttime routine. I feel, even with children and adults, it shouldn't be complicated. It should be simple, because when it's simple, that's when you're going to follow it, and that's when you will continue to do it. When it becomes too complicated, it's like, oh, I don't want to do that step.
Yes, you are speaking my language here, Rachel. I love it. And I think this can be applied to so many facets: mealtime, morning, getting kids ready for school, all that.
Morning routine is a big one also, very big.
Yeah. So I would love to shift for a moment here. And of course, you don't have to give everything away, because I know that you have some courses and workshops and things that you offer to parents, as well as one-on-one coaching. So I just want to give maybe people a taste of, what it is, or some of these strategies that you implement. But, say for instance, I had I'm just thinking back to sort of this time with my nephew. He's such a darling, but we left the room for like a second and came back, and there was an entire box of Cocoa Puffs on the floor. And in that moment, I don't exactly remember how I responded, but I tried to get calm. Again, I try to really practice some Stoic practices and be just, get centered, ask God for help, all those things. So I don't know that maybe I reacted in the ideal way, though, to that. So when I was watching him, so, in a moment where mom, dad walks in, aunt, uncle, whatever, babysitter, teacher, and, this situation comes up, mess on the floor, I've had a long day. Like, what are maybe some like go-to strategies, or is there like a 3-step process? Like, what is that generally that, the sort of like those diffusing things for, a parent or a guardian?
Well, like you said some great things. What the parent needs to do first before they respond is to work on themselves. Where is that parent? Are you ready to deal with this situation, or are you at your max where you can't? And either way is okay. You're human, and like I said before, maybe you had a bad day and you're not doing great. That's okay. I always work with the parents on expressing that to their children. So you don't want to just respond right away. You want to take that minute to see where you are. Am I going to respond from a place of calm so I can deal with the situation? Or am I responding from a place of anger and frustration? Okay, so like that's where the parent has to check in with themselves first. That is the first step. Okay, so the first step is absolutely, where am I?
Okay.
Can I respond from calm, or am I responding from anger?
Okay.
And if you're angry, don't ignore that. Acknowledge that and acknowledge it out loud. Even if you have a 2-year-old who may not understand what you're saying, acknowledge that. Mommy's very angry. I'm very upset right now.
Oh, okay.
Acknowledge that and put it out there. That is the second step. And then we work together more so that you have the strategy of what to do next for what works best for you. There are some, and that's when I work with the parents, what will work best for you next, and how you would respond best. But the first step is to see where you are. Can you respond or can you not? And then acknowledge that. Don't ignore where you are. And I work a lot with parents on having a consequence, not a punishment. And the difference there is that a consequence is directly related to the behaviors and the actions. Okay, so he threw the Cocoa Puffs all over the floor. A consequence is he has to help pick up those Cocoa Puffs, and he has to help clean up his mess, and he has to clean it up and make it okay again. That's a consequence. I work more on consequences than a punishment. A lot of times parents do timeout or taking things away. That's more of a punishment than a consequence.
Oh.
And I work with parents to see the situation too, and to see what's happening. But a consequence is directly related to the behavior, where a punishment necessarily isn't, and it's more about removing something.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. I'm not sure that I really fully comprehend the difference, but I do. I think as an adult, I can kind of conceptualize the consequences of my actions, right? And that, if I spend too much time fixing my hair, I may be late to whatever thing, I'm going to, and then the consequence of that is
that's a general consequence.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, being able to teach children that concept, I think is brilliant, because and parents too. I think, gosh, that idea, like bingo. And even thinking about I kind of go back to like how I tie this into like sort of health and wellness, but maybe drinking the super calorie filled drink at Starbucks is going to make you feel really good right now. But the consequence of that is, in an hour, you may be crashing from all the sugar you just had.
Jittery. I get jittery.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, a consequence of not exercising every day. I mean, you may not really realize something like, not moving your body and stuff like that. But the consequences may not affect you until years down the road, where,
right.
You're dealing with joint pain or immobility and balance issues and strength and all those things. So being able to learn that at an early age, it's not so much about, because I feel that a lot of people tend to overeat or do things in the moment that make them happy, or, fill them with some sort of like immediate gratification. because they're avoiding the idea of like feeling punished if they're not going to have that thing. So it's like, oh, there's a brownie in front of me. It's like, it's almost like there's this weird thing in their brain where it's like a punishment if they're not going to eat the brownie.
If I can't eat it.
Yes. Instead of thinking, okay, well, what's a consequence of me eating this brownie? So
right. And like with
Rachel is
with your
brilliant.
nephew, thank you so much. With your nephew, like he threw the Cocoa Puffs on the floor. The problem is he probably just wanted them. Like he wanted a snack or he wanted some cereal and he couldn't get it. So he's like, I'm not going to ask for help. I'm just going to do it myself. The like instinct thought is, oh my God, they're all over the floor. Look at this big mess. Get out of the kitchen. Like get out of my way. You want to do the opposite and say, you made a mess. You now have to help clean it up. Sit on the floor and pick up the Cocoa Puffs. I'm not cleaning this up myself. Like you have to help me. Then when you're done with that situation, okay, you cleaned it up. The original problem is still there. He wanted Cocoa Puffs. So like you still have to go back and address the problem. So after you've cleaned up, you go back and say, did you want a snack? Were you hungry? And then figure out and say, okay, well, we don't have Cocoa Puffs anymore because you threw them on the floor. They're dirty. What can we have instead? And then that's where like you maybe offer two choices that you're okay with. You can have this or this instead of giving him a choice of the whole kitchen. No, he doesn't get whatever he wants. He gets this or this.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. Yeah. I think as I'm thinking back to this, I think it was oh no, like, he's in my care and I'm babysitting right now. And oops. Yeah. Like I was like, okay, like I got him occupied so that I could clean up the mess. Right. Instead of, So, I mean, prime example of me just not knowing better.
Right. And you are not alone in this. Like, and that's why to be the parent you want to be, because a lot of times after that situation, you look back on it and you're like, oh, I feel guilty. I'm not happy with how I responded. And that's what happens later on that night when moms are going to bed. And that's what's in their head. Oh, I feel guilty about how I yelled today. I feel guilty about what I did with my little one. So that's how I try to work with parents so that they can have those strategies. And once you have them, you can use them for all different situations and then you have the confidence to know, I know how to handle this situation.
Yeah, brilliant. So here's a question, for somebody who's maybe, for me, I feel very fortunate because I am not a mom yet. And I babysit, a little bit and I'm around children sometimes, but going down that road of, someday having my own child and starting this process for myself and learning is so helpful. But what about a parent who's maybe has a 10-year-old who's like, oh, well, crap, like it would have been great to know all this early on, but now my kid's 10, now what do I do? Like, is there a strategy for that?
It's not too late to work together because a 10-year-old has their own like tantrums. It may not be screaming and yelling on the floor. It might be whining or being cranky. Like the tantrum kind of changes, but they still have their own behaviors and still have things. But as a parent, if you have a 9 or a 10-year-old and that's what you're thinking, for us to work together, I customize working with the parent so that it does fit you and your family. Because strategies for a 4-year-old are different than strategies for a 9-year-old. But you learning, the parent learning, the mom learning, or the parent learning to respond differently, that can happen for any age. And then that's working on you knowing how to respond differently, how to approach the situation, and how to have connection afterwards. Okay. So that you can always work on.
Excellent. Okay. Good to know. Thank you. And I think this is helpful maybe even for some of my teacher friends, because, I have some friends who are working with fifth graders, sixth graders, middle school, that sort of thing, where again, these structures might not be in place with parents at home. And the only place they're getting any kind of discipline, consequences, that sort of thing is in a school environment. Um, this is really kind of like a poignant conversation I just had with a friend of mine. She is a middle school teacher, and her approach has been to, maybe it wasn't always this way, but she's learned to, have like actual conversations with the kids and understand like what's, going on. And other teachers will look at her strategies and be like, oh, this, everybody just peace loving, and they don't really want to adopt that, but yet she has a much better result with the kids in her classroom than some of these other teachers who just go to 10 and yell back and get in these confrontations. And and unfortunately, sort of in the like the region where I live, there are a lot of struggles, I think, for parents, and maybe just parents who can't be, two parents are working outside the home, or there's a single parent at home and they're not there to, discipline and structure. So yeah, it's really, I think, important for all people to be on board with this. And not just from a parenting perspective, but if you are a teacher or, work with kids in some capacity, that you may be where the buck stops. You may be that person that offers this type of structure to a child, no matter what age, even if they are older and never experienced that before. So I guess I'm saying this to encourage maybe all people who are listening to like tune in.
Absolutely. And sometimes when a child doesn't have a great home life, they look to that teacher as a real role model. Like, this is somebody I can talk to, or this is somebody that will listen to my problems. This is somebody that cares about me. That's really important, to have that connection and have that child feel that connection, from whoever they're getting it from. That is really, really important, and some people do resist things that I'm talking about, and it's other generations. And sometimes when I've worked with parents, they say that their parent, the grandparent, doesn't agree and things. And that's because for many years, it was the child is supposed to be seen and not heard. Or, children were told, don't cry, you're fine, you're just fine. Where it's not seeing if the child is fine. It's just telling them, you're fine. Like, I don't want to deal, you're fine. That's what was there for so long. So now when parents are like, I don't want to do that, they have to have other strategies or other ways to deal with that, where they can be firm, but still have that connection with their little one.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I love that. Like, things, the world changes, society changes, and people need to change, with everything. And, again, going back to health and wellness, same thing. I think we know better now about things with our health and wellness. So it's up to us to do better, in a lot of ways.
Right. The point is, you don't always have information with health and wellness, with parenting. You don't always have it. So you do what you can, but you want to learn more and better yourself and better your relationship with your child and your connection and things, to learn more.
Absolutely. So let's segue into that here, Rachel. The things that you offer. I would love for you to just, kind of tell people what's something, some way that they can get connected with this information. Are there workshops online? Is there a course that you offer? I know you do one-on-one coaching as well. So what would maybe be like a good place for someone to start?
Oh, thank you. I have 2 workshops that were done live. They are recorded, and you still get all the information, as well as messaging support from me when you buy the workshops. So I have one workshop on controlling your yelling, and that really works on the parent, and it works on what we discussed a little bit here, the steps, what recognizing where you are, how you can approach the situation, and what to do instead. What do you do next? And then also we discussed, if you do yell, you lost it that day, how do you recover from that? How do you repair your relationship with your little one? So that's all in my Control Your Yelling workshop, which is easy to get on my website. And then once it's purchased, you have messaging support from me, so I can help you through the workshop and answer any questions that you have. I also have another workshop on tantrums. It's on toddler tantrums, and it's about how to approach the toddler now. So if you've worked on you, how do you approach the toddler? How do you handle this situation and give a consequence? How do you teach the toddler about their feelings, that the feelings are okay, but we have to separate the behaviors? We can be upset, but we can't throw the block at somebody. So what do we do there? And then have that connection and teaching point after a tantrum. So that's in my tantrum workshop. And that also is available as a video, and you get resources as well. You get written resources to go through the workshop, and you get messaging support so that you can answer any questions that you may have.
Oh, excellent. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. So where do people find that? I know I typically do link these things in the show notes for people. So if you're driving and you can't write this down, no problem. I got you. So Rachel, how do people, maybe find those workshops or get connected with you on social media?
It's Explore Kid Talk website, explorekidtalk.com. You can type in Explore Kid Talk on Instagram and on Facebook as well, so that you can find me. And I am very open to messages. So you can always message me too if you have a question or something specific to your family, and I get right back to you as soon as I can.
Oh, wow. Well, that's excellent. Good to know. I'll be ready for a flood of inbox things from me once I have a kid. Like, Rachel, what's going on?
I'm open to it. Absolutely. I would love it.
Oh, excellent. Well, is there anything, any maybe words of wisdom or any last piece of advice that you would want to kind of give our audience right now?
Well, that it's okay if you're not happy with how you responded, or you're laying in bed and you're feeling guilty and you're feeling upset. You are not alone, and you can always work on changing that and doing something differently if that's what you want to do.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Permission to feel. I think that's kind of the hot topic of today, is permission to feel how we feel, but then knowing that there are perhaps better ways to respond, and it's our responsibility to take leadership in those situations. And I'm gonna take that with me today, even in my interactions with other adults and my husband, and things like that. Like check in with myself. How am I feeling in this moment? Express it, perhaps.
Yes.
And
that's important with your husband too. And I tell that to parents too. And sometimes parents have even said, that sounds so strange to me, like to do that, because it's not something that we're used to or taught, but it is very beneficial. Instead of just saying, and I used to do this, I'm fine. If you express it, you can deal with it better. You can tell your husband, no, I don't want to talk right now. Like, I need some time. It will help the relationship and the situation.
Oh, good. Okay. This is all right. Good tangible stuff that I can grab and hold on to and use even today. So thank you, Rachel, so much. I want to just honor you for being here, for showing up and like living in this purpose that you've been called to, because just in speaking with you before and now, I could just tell that this is God's work and you're doing it. And it's so incredible that you are bringing this to the world. I think it's very necessary. So
thank you so much for those kind words. Really, you made my day. Thank you.
Oh, excellent. And I look forward to connecting with you in the future and learning from you, taking some of your workshops, even probably prior to having a child here, and just getting myself more and more ready to deal with those things as they come. So thank you again, Rachel. We'll let everybody know where to find you, and cheers to many, many years of great success to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Crystal, for having me. It's been wonderful.
Of course, of course. So long.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. If someone you love would benefit from this message, please, please share this podcast with them. And if you want more out of your life, not just surviving every day, but you want to truly thrive, visit me at KrystalizedHealthAdvisors.com or on Facebook to schedule your free dream strategy call with me today. Do not hesitate any longer. Life is short, and I want you to truly live the playful life. I will see you next time, and as always, stay playful.